Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
Will this show be a cold, comprehensive laundry list of everything important that happened in 2019? Are you kidding me? This is a subjectively compiled mix of a lot of stuff that's going to jog your memory, make you smile, make you happy, make you sad, make you ready to put an end to the decade, just put a punctuation mark on the whole 10 years. There's hard news, there's soft news, there's weird news, warm and fuzzy news, I can't believe this actually happened news, and whatever else made the cut for this year's broadcast. For this journey back in time over the last 12 months, I will be your guide. You have my word. I tried not to miss the big stuff, and then I will, as always, end the show with the weird news segment everybody seems to just love. You know, the weird stuff that actually happened that made the news in 2019. We'll cap the show with that. It's almost over, 2019, but it is worth just one more look. And so for your approval, my friends, I present 2019, the year in review. We kicked off the year with a government shutdown. Didn't that kind of set the tone? A showdown over funding for Trump's southern border wall, the second government shutdown since Donald Trump took office. He wanted a funding measure for the wall. He wanted $5.7 billion toward construction. The Democrats in Congress said no way. 40% of the federal workforce furloughed. 800,000 people furloughed or asked to work without any guarantee of getting paid. That shutdown lasted for 35 days, the longest in United States history, and it cost us $3 billion in back pay for furloughed workers, $2 billion for lost revenue from government institutions and entities like national parks and such. Trump declared a national emergency over the southern border wall in February. A national emergency meant that Trump could use emergency funds, designated emergency money, to build his wall, and that has not worked out for him either. The House passed a bill rejecting the declaration of emergency in February. Trump vetoed that bill. In October, a federal judge said the use of emergency funds for the border wall is unlawful and that Trump overstepped his authority. Some good news to kick off the year. Austria legalized same-sex marriage, deeming all existing laws discriminatory. The Constitutional Court of Austria joined several other European nations like Germany, France, and Spain to legalize marriage between same-sex couples. Taiwan followed suit in May. Taiwan, by the way, is the first country in Asia to do so. Why do we tell everybody, get your flu shot? Well, the CDC reported in January that influenza was on the rise. 3 months prior to January the 10th, over 80,000 people were hospitalized for the flu. Over 6 million people contracted the flu in the same time frame. The World Health Organization just reported that nearly 10 million people were infected last year worldwide with the measles, and 140,000 people died of it, mostly children. Now remember, measles was declared eradicated here in the United States 19 years ago. Colorado just saw an outbreak of whooping cough that spread to 5 schools, about 80 cases reported so far. There's a war on vaccines out there. You know this. I know this. On March the 6th, 11 U.S. states passed anti-vaccination bills that expanded the excuses that parents give to opt their kids out of getting vaccines. The American Academy of Pediatrics said that at least 20 states have introduced anti-vaccination bills just this year. Conspiracy theories, bad science, and medical myths, they continue to fuel this opposition to vaccines out there. The celebrities aren't helping, by the way. Despite the fact that the World Health Organization says vaccination's one of the most cost-effective ways of avoiding disease. Vaccination prevents 2 to 3 million deaths every single year. Massive teachers strike in Los Angeles in January. 32,000 teachers walked out for better pay, better benefits. The strike lasted a week, and the teachers' union got a lot of what it asked for. They wanted caps on class sizes and full-time nurses for every school and a library for every middle and high school in the district. By the fall of next year, they get a pay raise, 6% for teachers. Teachers in Denver followed with a strike in February. Other strikes took place throughout the year. Tennessee, Oregon. October saw a Chicago teacher strike that affected 300,000 students. Another massive gathering in January. The historic Women's March happened January the 19th in hundreds of cities across the planet. March is flooded with people marching for women's rights and highly focused on the 2020 presidential election. Remember, 4.6 million women globally protested Donald Trump's inauguration back in 2017. 4.6 million. This year's was a controversial march for the same reasons as last year, really, as two of the Women's March organizers, Linda Sarsour and Tamika Mallory, were tied to Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam leader who had made what were described as homophobic, anti-Semitic, and transphobic comments. They were tied to him, much controversy. Both Linda Sarsour and Tamika Mallory stepped down from the board of the Women's March in July of this year. The Catholic Church kicked off the year by pitching a new app for communal prayer. Click to Pray. I am not making it up. It is real. An app promoted by the Pope himself. There's a photograph of him from January, and he's got a tablet. Someone's holding a tablet up, and he's like using the app. The church is going after young people, trying to get them to come back into the church. They're hoping they'll take Catholicism up on this little prayer invention. There's even a website. You can check it out. Go to clicktopray.com. Good luck getting the young people back, teenagers and young adults leaving the Catholic Church in droves, and it's not a marketing problem. Catholic News Service did an article this year on strategies for trying to get the nuns, the non-religious, back into church. The article said 50% of Catholics 30 years old and younger have left the church. 50%. 1 in 6 millennials is now former Catholic. And for every one person that joins the Catholic Church, 6 are leaving. And for many of us, we consider that a good start to 2019. It was in January that China became the first nation to successfully land a spacecraft on the far side of the moon. You know, the side of the moon that never faces the Earth? So they needed a relay satellite to help this craft touch down. And the next step is research. They're going to study that side of the moon to gather more information about our early solar system. February saw some sad NASA news. It was the end of Mars Opportunity. Opportunity roving the surface of Mars finally stopped working. After sending back amazing photographs and data from the surface of Mars, this thing was originally only designed for a 90-day mission. Opportunity kept on ticking for 15 years. 2019 saw the horror of the Momo challenge. Parents freaking out across the nation about Momo and the Momo challenge. They mashed at their keyboards on Facebook. They warned about this dangerous suicide game targeting children on social media. The game centered around a demonic chicken lady named Momo. Now, just Google image search Momo. Actually really creepy, okay? But it's not a suicide game. It's not a real threat. Now, parents were saying that the game had messages that encouraged kids to self-harm, to commit suicide. There's no evidence. There's no evidence to support this. There never was. That signature image from Momo is a statue. It's a statue called Mother Bird, made by Japanese artist Keisuke Asawa, and I'm sure I butchered that name. My apologies. Keisuke Asawa works for a special effects factory in Japan, and the Momo images have been floating around since 2016. So there's no conspiracy, there's no danger, there's no suicide game. Fact-checking is your friend, parents. For those of us who've been watching with fascination the advancement of stem cell technologies, some interesting news out of March of this year. A stem cell transplant made the HIV of a patient in London undetectable. That was the word the doctors used, undetectable. Doctor said he was in remission for 18 months, wasn't taking any HIV drugs. They stopped short of calling this an HIV cure, but it does mean that science might be one step closer to a cure. On July 2nd of this year, researchers from the University of Nebraska Medical Center and Temple University said they'd successfully eliminated HIV from the DNA of infected mice, cleaning their genome, so to speak. Out of 23 infected mice, 9 saw a complete elimination of HIV. Clinical trials could follow as soon as next summer. Right now on the planet, nearly 37 million people have HIV. It was a huge college admission scam, and probably more proof that, well, if you got money and you're a celebrity and you're influential, you can kind of write your own check and play by a different set of rules until you get caught. This scandal resulted in over 50 arrests in March of 2019. The scam had dozens of rich parents securing spots for their kids at Yale and Stanford and other big-name schools by paying tens of thousands of dollars for higher test scores, having imposters take or correct SAT or ACT exams, backdoors for athletic scholarships for kids who might not even play the sport at all, doctored college applications with doctored photographs, the use of nonprofit foundations to pay off colleges. The ringleader for this scam is a guy named William Singer. He's apparently been doing this, bribing, falsifying, fabricating exams and student bios for the better part of 30 years. Among those involved, some famous TV and film names, Felicity Huffman from Desperate Housewives and American Crime and other TV shows and movies. She pled guilty right off the bat. She paid $15,000 for bogus SAT results. That a few days in jail, was fined, has to do 250 hours of community service. Pleading not guilty, TV star Lori Loughlin from Full House. Wait a minute, Full House? And her fashion designer husband, Massimo Giannulli. They allegedly paid $500,000 to get fake credentials so their daughters could attend the University of Southern California. March 15th of this year, the Christchurch massacre. 50 people killed and another 50 wounded after a gunman opened fire at the Al Noor Mosque and Linwood Islamic Center in Christchurch, New Zealand. The killer arrested and charged. New Zealand only 6 days later, passing a sweeping ban on semi-automatics and assault rifles for the entire country. CBS News reported a total of 369 mass shootings by November of this year. The nonprofit group Gun Violence Archive listed those 369 shootings in just 321 days. That's more than one a day. They define mass shooting as any incident in which at least 4 people are shot, not including the shooter. 12 killed in Virginia Beach in May. An August 3rd shooting at an El Paso Walmart that killed 22 and wounded 24. 9 dead, 37 injured in Dayton, Ohio, August the 4th. A drive-by shooting spree in Odessa and Midland, Texas this past August, killing 7. A school shooting in Santa Clarita, November 14th, with a 16-year-old shooter who killed 2 and wounded 3 before putting the gun to his own head. School shootings dominated our headlines in 2019, from Mobile, Alabama to Highlands Ranch, Colorado to the University of North Carolina and beyond. The New York Times ran a September article about many schools that participate in these active shooter drills. They're also known as lockdown drills. And they cited trauma experts who say that the drills themselves might be causing a different kind of trauma to kids. In the drills, the students may be played actual 911 calls or taught about tourniquets for potential victims, their bleeding schoolmates, or an options-based approach called Run, Hide, Fight. It began as an adult course to prepare adults for workplace violence. A few schools were covering students in fake blood, having them play victim by lying on the floor as staged police went through the halls and secured them. The BBC ran an article in March of this year asking, have drills gone too far? Some psychologists and educators say that frequent, realistic drills can contribute to anxiety and depression in children, and that the active shooter training should focus more on the teachers and the staff as the students follow their instructions and example. Of course, the gun debate rages on. There are now 350 million firearms in the United States alone. And the Pew Research Center says it's the younger adult demographic that's most supportive of stricter gun legislation. And overall, 46% of Americans polled want tighter gun restrictions. March 22nd, we finally saw the delivery of Robert Mueller's report on the Trump-Russia collusion question. The report essentially said, yeah, Russia interfered, and that Trump's specific role could not be ruled in or ruled out. The Mueller report was released in book form. It spent a number of weeks at number 1 on the New York Times paperback nonfiction bestseller list. And I think this is even more interesting. For those who won't read the book, it's also coming in graphic novel form. They have condensed the 448-page report down to 208 illustrated pages. A Mueller report comic, the graphic novel produced by cartoonist Shannon Wheeler and journalist Dave Doohan. It releases in April of 2020. 2019 saw the final days of Google+. Remember Google+? Did anyone use Google+? It was launched in 2011 as the social network that was going to redefine social media. It was going to combine all the best parts of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that other stuff, and it was going to revolutionize everything, and it launched big, and it sank like a stone. This crash and burn finally prompting Google to officially pull the plug on the 2nd of April of this year. I never found Google Plus intuitive or attractive. I really never used it. Did you? Did you like it? Do you miss it? What's your take on Google Plus? The 10th of April, 2019, NASA released the first ever image of a black hole. You probably remember the image. It went viral. It was blurry and kind of resembled a radioactive Cheerio, but it was still amazing. I mean, it was a black hole. The image was captured by the Event Horizon Telescope, the black hole located in the Messier 87 or M87 galaxy. It is nearly 3 million times the size of our planet. 3 million times the size of Earth, this black hole, and it's located 500 million trillion kilometers away. And yet, blurry or not, we were able to see it. Thank you, science. Here's a related story. The Chinese Academy of Science announced just a few weeks ago that they discovered a monster black hole. Their words, monster black hole, so massive that in theory it should not even exist. Scientists used to think that a black hole could not be more than 20 times the mass of our sun. But the LB1 black hole, it's located about 15,000 light years away in the Virgo constellation. It has a mass of 70 times greater than our sun. So now the astrophysicist and cosmologist and scientists in general are all going back to the drawing board to find out exactly how this monster black hole could exist. April 11th, we saw the arrest of Julian Assange, co-founder of WikiLeaks, facing espionage charges in the United States. He's accused of releasing classified information about various military operations, among other materials from WikiLeaks, which he founded with friends back in 2006. He is currently serving 50 weeks in a UK prison on other charges. He faces extradition back to the United States for violating the Espionage Act of 1917. It's interesting to see the opinion split. Is he a whistleblower? Is he a hero? Or is he a traitor and mere criminal? April 15th, devastating fire breaks out at the 850-year-old Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. Heavy damage to that building. Huge portion of the roof and spire were destroyed outright. Lots of discussion about the power of God to potentially prevent this fire. I mean, come on, it's the cathedral in Notre Dame in Paris. I mean, if any building needs protecting, right? How many public resources ought to go into rebuilding this particular structure, especially knowing that the Catholic Church is essentially a multi-billion-dollar business? How much public money should go into the restoration of the Cathedral of Notre Dame? April 30th, the Venezuelan uprising. Nicolas Maduro's re-election met with claims that the ballots were rigged. His opponent, calling himself interim president and enjoying the support of much of the public and the endorsement of over 50 nations, he led this uprising, which was called Operation Freedom. 4 people died in those riots. May of 2019 saw Denver voting to decriminalize magic mushrooms. If you're 21 or older, they are now legal. Magic mushrooms, a hallucinogenic. The vote was close. It was almost 50-50. Now, the mushrooms still aren't legal per se, but Denver just doesn't want to use law enforcement resources to pursue it or prosecute it. The shrooms are popular, my friends. They're popular as a recreational drug, but there's some and growing evidence out there that these mushrooms, these psilocybin mushrooms, might be useful in treating things like anxiety and depression. There's a fascinating TED Talk about this with Dr. Rosalind Watts. She is a clinical psychologist from the University College in London, and she did a TED Talk about it called Can Magic Mushrooms Unlock Depression? That TED Talk is available on YouTube if you're interested. On May the 6th, he was born, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. Born to Prince Harry and Meghan of the royal family, the baby is 7th in line of succession to the British throne. Takes us back to the conversation about being born better than someone else. I've never really gotten the royal family. I don't get that. I don't understand it. You're born better than someone else? I don't understand. On May the 6th, it became the fastest film ever to reach the $2 billion mark, and it only took 2 weekends after its release. Of course, I'm talking about Avengers Endgame. The Avengers knocked out Titanic, which had hit $2 billion in 11 days. Big movie. May 15th saw the passing of the nation's most restrictive abortion law in Alabama. It made abortion a felony, even in the case of rape and incest. The bill is called the Human Life Protection Act, and it's a near total ban. Any doctor performing an abortion could get life in prison. Sponsor of the bill, Republican Terry Collins, has said publicly she hopes the Alabama law paves the way all the way to the Supreme Court and the eventual overturning of Roe v. Wade. 2019 saw the increasing popularity of the meatless burger. Restaurants are including them on the menu, including some fast food chains out there. They're becoming more popular at the grocery stores. The meatless burger. What's it made of if it's not meat? Well, the Impossible Burger includes soy protein concentrate, coconut oil, sunflower oil, modified food starch, and other ingredients. The Beyond Burger doesn't have any soy or gluten. It gets its protein from peas, rice, and mung bean. Mung bean. I had to go look that one up. It's a plant mainly cultivated in Asia and India, the mung bean. The good news is that meatless burgers are usually a pretty good source of protein, vitamins, minerals. But here's the bad news. We're talking about heavily processed foods, high in sodium and saturated fat. There was a Harvard Medical School article from August of this year that called the meatless burger good for the planet, but not necessarily the best option for good health. You know, I tried a meatless burger. There's a vegan place here in town, and they had it on the menu. I think it was made from soybeans. Honestly, not bad. You know, it was a little dry, but not bad. On May the 24th, SpaceX launched a single rocket out of Florida and put into place 60 separate satellites at one time. Total time for the entire mission was 1 hour. Of course, SpaceX is headed up by chief engineer, designer, entrepreneur Elon Musk, who, when he is not making headlines, smoking weed with Joe Rogan, is making headlines like the one he made this last November with the revelation of the Tesla Cybertruck, which you can order online starting at $40,000. That's really less than I thought it would be. And you've seen the pictures. You must have seen the pictures. The Cybertruck, an electric pickup that looks like it was created in Minecraft, really. The design's been polarizing. People love it or they hate it. I saw one meme that showed it being designed with Microsoft Paint, and it was signed Elon, age 4. So the pickup bed itself, it's hidden by this protective glass. 100 cubic feet of interior storage, has a heavy steel body that can withstand a 9mm bullet fired from just 10 meters away. People are buzzing about it, folks. The Cybertruck is going up against popular pickup brands like the Ford F-Series and the Chevy Silverado. It has a 250 to 500 mile range on the charge, depending on the model. Maximum payload is 3,500 pounds, towing capacity starting at 7,500 pounds for the single motor version, double that for the triple motor version. Tesla had about 200,000 pre-orders for the Cybertruck on the week of its unveiling. Actual production of the Tesla Cybertruck begins in late 2021. On May 30th of this year, New Hampshire became the 21st state to repeal the death penalty. That leaves 29 U.S. states where state-operated execution is still legal. 11 people died in May of this year. They were climbing Mount Everest. The culprit seems to be overcrowding. It's become a popular tourist attraction. That mixed with bad weather, people get stuck in these human traffic jams and they simply freeze before they can get themselves to safety. To date, more than 300 people have lost their lives on Everest. June the 7th, after nearly 3 years as UK Prime Minister, Theresa May formally resigning as leader of the Conservative Party, her resignation the result of failed Brexit negotiations. Holy shit, I think we've got it bad in the United States. And then I look across the pond at Brexit, and I can't decide which flavor of chaos I would choose if I had to. Like if you gave me the A-B choice, do you take the insanity here or the insanity there? I don't know. She was replaced by former London Mayor and Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, and hasn't he been a trip? December saw Boris Johnson and his Conservative Party win huge in the UK election, the biggest election victory for the Conservatives since 1987. His opponent, Jeremy Corbyn, called by many unelectable as a candidate, he stepped down from the Labour Party. Brexit back on track, apparently for the end of next month. Brexit, though, is still far from done after it's passed and ratified in January. Then the UK moves into an even more expansive and complicated negotiation period. That involves parliaments all across the European Union, where every member state gets to vote and veto on how the UK's future relationship is going to be set up. And then after that, it's implementation of Brexit, which may drag on for years to come. July was hot. I mean, like hot. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration confirmed July, the hottest month ever recorded on planet Earth since we have been keeping records. Global temperatures averaging 62.13 degrees. That's 1.7 degrees over last century's average. The heat wave was most pronounced in Alaska, Central Europe, northern and southwestern Asia, and parts of Africa and Australia. 9 of the 10 hottest Julys ever, like ever on record. 9 out of the 10 hottest Julys have occurred in the last 14 years. 2019 was the year of Greta Thunberg, the teenage environmental activist from Sweden, who's inspired student-led school strikes to protest global climate change. She gave an address in front of the United Nations Climate Change Conference last year, and in 2019 there were at least 2 coordinated multi-city protests that involved over 1 million students each. Greta Thunberg was featured on the cover of Time magazine in May of this year. She was a nominee for this year's Nobel Peace Prize. been an activist since she was in 9th grade. After Sweden was plagued with heat waves and wildfires during its hottest summer in over 250 years. Her message is pretty simple. Humanity is in this mess because of a generation of parents and grandparents and so forth that are leaving the problem to their children. Not enough is being done, and hey, it's time to listen to the scientists. She is a tough cookie. Here is a clip from the UN Climate Action Summit where she chastised the leaders of the world.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
By the way, for her activism, Time magazine just named Greta Thunberg its 2019 Person of the Year. Oh, and we have so much more to come after this short break. Is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook taking over the world? We're going to talk about that. We're going to get into the vaping controversy this year. We've got aliens, robots. We're going to talk about the celebrities that we lost, some strange news, and much, much more. It's 2019, the year in review, and it continues right after this. We've all likely asked ourselves what we'd like to do better or more of in 2020, even if you're not into New Year's resolutions. The new year is a time to focus on being better, how to maximize our time, evolve our understanding. If this is you, Blinkist is a great way to kick things off. Blinkist is for anybody who cares about learning but doesn't have a whole lot of time. Blinkist takes the key insights from over 3,000 nonfiction bestsellers in over 27 categories and condenses them down into 15-minute blinks. Text and or audio explainers that get to the core ideas of a book. It's hugely useful. You can get into a subject quickly. You can decide what books you might want to dig deeper into. The audio version is hugely convenient. You can digest the core message of an entire book on a single drive, on the headphones, on a morning walk, wherever. I like to use Blinkist when I'm out driving. I'm an audiobook guy anyway. The 15-minute format really lets me cover a lot of territory in a really short amount of time. I enjoyed the new book out from Mark Manson. It's called Everything is Fucked, a book about hope, which gets into things like the feeling brain versus the logical brain. And interestingly, how a pursuit of happiness is really not the goal that we should be pursuing in our temporary lives. Also really enjoyed the autobiography by Michelle Obama, Becoming. Right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/Seth to start your free 7-day trial and get 25% off of a Blinkist premium membership. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Seth to get 25% off and a 7-day free trial. Blinkist.com/Seth. Thank you so much for listening. This is 2019, the year in review. Facebook was hit with a big fine. Federal Trade Commission fined Facebook $5 billion for a violation of privacy rights of consumers and the misuse of our data. When the data analysis and consulting firm Cambridge Analytica was using Facebook to develop personality scores for approximately 30 million Americans. Facebook did not disclose this. And also, Cambridge Analytica was the same organization that was given access to 50 million profiles for targeted election ads during the 2016 presidential campaign. $5 billion, that's the largest penalty ever imposed on any company for consumer privacy violations. A lot of questions about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook when it comes to the airing of political advertisements. Gayle King of CBS This Morning had a sit-down interview with Mark Zuckerberg, and she asked him point blank about these political ads that are running that contain obvious fake information. Does Facebook have a responsibility to vet that stuff before it's released to the public? Here's a clip from that exchange between Gayle King and Mark Zuckerberg on CBS.
The main thing now that people are talking about are the political ads, that you don't want to take down political ads that people know are false, that they contain false information.
What I believe is that in a democracy, it's really important that people can see for themselves what politicians are saying so that they can make their own judgments. And, I don't think that a private company should be censoring politicians or news.
Even if the ads are containing false information. I think that people should be able to judge for themselves the character of politicians.
Twitter announced it was going to pull the plug on all political ads outright. I mean, just totally. But Facebook says it's allowing political ads to continue, even the ones that have false information. Facebook's already facing investigations by the Federal Trade Commission, the Justice Department, and dozens of individual states about antitrust practices, with Facebook and these other major tech companies accused of abusing their enormous power to crush all the competition. It's kind of a monopoly argument, right? I mean, they're so big that they're not allowing anybody else a seat at the table. Well, it was revealed after it happened that Mark Zuckerberg had a personal meeting with Donald Trump at the White House. This was a meeting not disclosed by the White House. Reporters had to discover it, and it was reported after the fact. Here's what Zuckerberg had to say about that meeting on the same CBS sit-down with Gayle King.
You were in D.C. recently. It was reported later that you had dinner with the president of the White House. What was the nature of the meeting? Can you say?
Sure. I mean, we talked about a number of things that were on his mind, and some of the topics that you'd read about in the news around our work.
All right. That was super clear. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that. He was an American financier, apparent billionaire, and a monster. Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein arrested again July the 6th of this year on federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. Allegations of Epstein's history of sexual abuse of minors go way back, 15 years and beyond. Investigations including the Palm Beach Police and the FBI, and a 53-page indictment back in June 2007. That never made its way to a grand jury. The charges involving 34 confirmed minors ultimately reduced down to a plea deal for Epstein. He did some very soft time, a cush arrangement for a wealthy convict back in 2008. Put him in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Stockade before giving him a work release option. He could essentially come and go from an unlocked cell as he pleased for up to 12 hours, 6 days a week. At the time, the Miami Herald called that the deal of a lifetime. After that, other accusations of women who, when they were minors, were recruited for massages and sexual intercourse. Those lawsuits settled out of court, the documents sealed. And then most recently this year, Epstein arrested in July. The search of his townhouse turning up evidence of sex trafficking, often with children. The grand jury indictment mentioned dozens of underage girls who were brought to his mansion for sexual encounters. Another investigation in France for similar crimes committed in France. Then, of course, Epstein found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August the 10th, 2019. With a makeshift noose wrapped around his neck, the death was ruled a suicide, although there is a split in public opinion about that. 2 prison guards at the jail were indicted for falsifying official logs to show cell checks that they never actually did, and for sleeping on the job and web surfing in the hours before Epstein's body was found. Essentially, they were supposed to be supervising him, and they were doing nothing of the kind. He'd been left unchecked and unsupervised for 8 hours. The guards protest. They say they are being scapegoated. There's no video from Epstein's cell or the area around the cell, and of course this has given birth to the conspiracy theories and that popular internet meme over the past several months, Epstein didn't kill himself. Now, tragically, Epstein doesn't have to face his accusers in court. Some big names associated with Epstein remain, including Prince Andrew of Britain's royal family, accused of having teenage girls supplied to him by Epstein for sex, a charge that he denied on a widely criticized BBC interview that aired November the 16th. It aired just days before. Accuser Virginia Giuffre told the BBC that she had been forced to have sex with Andrew on 3 occasions when she was just 17. Now, you can see the whole of both Prince Andrew's interview and Virginia Giuffre's interview online. I think they're both on YouTube. Prince Andrew has stepped down from his public duties. The Telegraph reported this month that Prince Philip and Prince Charles reportedly told him his royal career is over, at least for now, for the greater good of the reputation of the monarchy. August 24th saw the first reported death linked to vaping, a resident of Illinois dying of severe respiratory illness which had been linked to e-cigarettes. The CDC reported about 2,300 possible cases of vaping-related illness, injury, or death, but even the CDC says the evidence for and against e-cigarettes is not necessarily sufficient. Many injuries apparently involve the additive vitamin E acetate in vaping products containing THC. These often come from secondhand or unknown manufacturers. For right now, the CDC says do not use THC-containing e-cigarettes or vaping products, and don't buy or use vaping products from informal sources like friends or unknown manufacturers. He crossed the English Channel and he made history. He was the first person to do so on a hoverboard. French inventor Frankie Zapata crossed the English Channel August 24th, standing on top of this totally badass-looking custom hoverboard, wearing a backpack loaded with fuel. The trip was 22 miles. He crossed the channel in 20 minutes. They were going to raid Area 51 this year and finally expose all of those X-Files secrets. You know, about UFOs, all those secrets the government's been hiding from us. And it all started with a meme, a viral Facebook joke that implored people to storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. A fake event with the arbitrary date of September 20th, 2019. More than 2 million people RSVP'd to storm Area 51. And the creator of the event page, a guy named Matty Roberts of Bakersfield, California, well, he even got a little visit from the FBI over this thing. The pseudo-event morphing from an assault on the military facility, which is what they were talking about, right? Let's go expose government secrets. And instead, it sort of morphed into this poor man's Area 51 Burning Man thing. With music and dancing and booze and whatever. At one point, the Lincoln County Sheriff was preparing for at least 30,000 people to show up to the town of Rachel, Nevada for alien stock. Ultimately, it looks like about 6,000 people eventually showed up. The town of Rachel, Nevada has a population of 54. And the townsfolk were largely kind of irritated by all this. The whole thing really ended up as a harmless way to wrap up the summer. A few visitors, there was a DJ, some commemorative t-shirts, $10 beer. And for the few that showed up, they said they might actually try it again in 2020. September saw that whistleblower complaint, you know, the one about the call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine, injecting the term quid pro quo into countless casual conversations. Trump formally impeached just this month on charges that he had pressured Ukraine to dig up dirt on a political rival in advance of the 2020 presidential election, and on a charge of obstructing Congress by refusing to cooperate. The vote, pretty much a straight party line vote. The Senate trial is supposedly, apparently, next on tap. The Constitution requires a 2/3 majority in the Senate to remove a president from office. They ain't gonna get it. House Speaker Pelosi says she might hold on to those articles of impeachment until there's a guaranteed fair hearing in the Senate, whatever that means. You know, it's interesting to watch these clashing positions on the impeachment, the opinions. It's almost like people are living in two different universes. There's one side, they say it's a necessary check and balance against the abuse of power by a president who never cared about the rules. So impeachment was necessary. Or you got the other side saying that the Democratic Party is just upset, right? It's all sour grapes over a president that they consider to be illegitimate because he lost the popular vote back in 2016, and they're just trying to hamstring a guy that they hate. And it's interesting. It's maddening to watch all of this play out. We got the 2020 presidential election on the horizon. Many of us wondering what in the world of post-Trump America even looks like. Of course, all are encouraged to make sure you're registered and ready to vote for the next president of the United States, whoever he or she may be. Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders got everybody's attention in October of this year with the announcement by his team that he'd had a heart attack, requiring emergency surgery to remove a blockage in his artery. 2 stents were placed in there. Bernie Sanders is 78 years old. And many Americans wondering, what does heart trouble in a 78-year-old candidate mean for the presidency? Eisenhower and LBJ, they both became president after they'd had heart attacks earlier in their life. Former Bush Vice President Dick Cheney had 4 heart attacks between 1988 and 2000. Joe Biden has had 2 brain aneurysms. That was back in the late 1980s. Joe Biden's 76. Bernie Sanders said he's doing a better job these days of listening to his body and managing his time. He is still near the front of the 2020 presidential race. October the 8th, U.S. gymnast Simone Biles broke the record for the number of world championship medals won by a woman. Medal number 25 was awarded at the Artistic Gymnastics World Championships in Germany. Biles is prepping for the Olympics, the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo next year. She is 22. Simone says this will be her last Olympics. October 18th, NASA astronauts Christina Cook and Jessica Meir made history by completing the first all-woman spacewalk. The 2 women spent 7 hours outside the International Space Station working on a power issue. In October, California became the first U.S. state to ban all animal fur products. It is now illegal to sell, donate, or manufacture new fur products in the state of California. Clothing, handbags, shoes, anything made with fur. Some exceptions made for Native American tribes. Furs used in religious practice, that's no surprise. Legal hunting. California also banned the use of animals like tigers and elephants in circuses. Yet another bill prevents the slaughter of horses or hunting bobcats. The laws go into effect January 1st, 2023. Speaking of animals, ranchers in Moscow made the news just last month. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food released these photographs of milk cows, and the cows were wearing virtual reality headsets. Now, this is an odd sight. Just Google the photographs, and they're real. This experiment's supposed to see if you can improve the mood of a cow and also the milk production of a cow, because happier cows produce more milk. And you do so by strapping a custom-fitted VR headset to your cow. And you simulate this pleasant summer field where the cow is grazing and hanging out. Now, of course, cows are still at the milk production facilities, but they're supposed to think that they're out sunning themselves on the open plains. And I have questions. Like, what happens when the headset battery goes dead? Is it just black? Can they see through it? Do they see where they're out? Do they get depressed when you turn off the simulation and they're back at the milk factory? Hell, I know some humans like that. They unplug from VR and they have to get back to the grind, and they're like, shit, this sucks. And how do you custom fit a virtual reality headset for a cow? I have questions. Another weird cattle story. Did you see those photographs out of Oregon? Sylvie's Valley Ranch saw cattle mysteriously mutilated. Cows' carcasses lying on the ground, totally drained of blood, deflated like a balloon. The tongue removed, genitals removed surgically. No sign of buzzards or coyotes or any other scavengers. The animals hadn't been shot or anything like that. There were no tracks around any of the bodies. No idea what happened to these cows. The Harney County Sheriff's Office has an open investigation. The ranch itself has put out a reward, $25,000 reward for information that could solve the case of the blood-drained cows. In November, it was supposed to be an awesome gender reveal celebration near the town of Turkey, Texas, a few hundred miles northwest of Dallas. Now, the idea with these parties is that you are revealing the gender of a soon-to-be born child in a fancy and elaborate way, right? We're going to reveal to you, is it a boy or is it a girl? A West Texas pilot, he's supposed to fly over and dump hundreds of gallons of pink water during this gender reveal celebration, pink revealing that the baby was a girl. But after the release, the plane stalled and crashed. Passenger got minor injuries. The pilot was unhurt. Gender reveals have grown increasingly popular over the past decade. Some people use smoke, confetti, guns, explosives, even wild animals to reveal a child's biogender. One stunt that happened a couple of years ago involved an explosion of blue smoke in the Santa Rita mountain foothills. That ignited a massive wildfire which burned 47,000 acres, caused about $8 million worth of damage. This past October, there was a woman in Knoxville, Iowa. She constructed a homemade explosive loaded with colorful powder for the gender reveal, essentially a pipe bomb. The thing went off prematurely. She was killed when it exploded. Boy, the cost benefit on that, I mean, it seems like an awfully big risk for what you're getting. You know, I mean, just write it down, stick it in an envelope, right? And seal it, put a stamp on it. Boston Dynamics, we talk about them from time to time. They're always posting those amazing yet really creepy videos of their robot dogs that are doing various tasks with increasing dexterity, by the way. I mean, it used to be that they walked, and now they've got the ones that you can't really tip them over, or they can get back up, or they can walk stairs, or even open doors, maybe even pick locks. I mean, every year, well, they get more amazing and a little more creepy. Well, there was a report that came out that the ACLU obtained in August of this year, revealing that the Massachusetts Police Department's been experimenting with robot dogs from Boston Dynamics for applications in law enforcement. This raises a lot of ethical questions, like you want to keep humans out of harm's way. If there's a potential bomb or dangerous situation, it makes a lot of sense to send a robot in there that can navigate the environment to see what's up. But what happens when these robots actually start doing law enforcement? I mean, we've all seen the movies, right? And where is the ethical line drawn? When someone using a remote control can potentially use this robot against another human being, criminal or not. So we're in a whole new world. The vice president for business development of Boston Dynamics said, yeah, they loaned Spot the robot dog to the Massachusetts bomb squad, but he doesn't want Spot weaponized. He really wants the robot dog to be used more for recon. You go in with the cameras and the sensors and you just assess without actually interacting with the environment at all. Now, we're going to see how long that lasts. I mean, we're already seeing weaponized robots of all kinds, especially in the military, but not just the military. In fact, right now, there's a company called Throwflame, and for $1,500, you can buy their flamethrower attachment for drones. So the drone carries a gallon of flamethrower fuel, and the flamethrower can hit a distance of 25 feet for up to 100 seconds. This is for sale to the public? Are you kidding? I mean, we live in a culture where people will get into fistfights over a parking space. Or, you know, who got the last LCD television at the big Christmas sale at, you know, some retail. I mean, people will go to blows over anything. And we're going to give them flamethrower drones? I do not think this is a good idea. November was the month of the launch of Disney Plus, still another online streaming service that opened to some technical glitches, but a massive sign-up revolving around the Star Wars spin-off, The Mandalorian. 10 million people subscribed to Disney Plus on the very first day. The content comes from Disney, Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, National Geographic, 20th Century Fox, Touchstone Pictures, and others. There's no R-rated or mature content on Disney+, but come on, you don't really watch Disney for that stuff anyway, do you? Speaking of The Mandalorian, that show opened huge, and it remains huge. Baby Yoda memes have united the galaxy. The cute factor is off the charts. Early this month, viewer statistics show The Mandalorian to be the top streaming television show on the planet, breaking the 21-week streak of the popular Netflix series Stranger Things. More Star Wars news in December. With the release of The Rise of Skywalker, it hit theaters big. Well, I say big, not necessarily big for Star Wars. I think they were expecting closer to $200 million U.S. box office for the debut weekend, closer to $175, another $198 million overseas, and mixed reviews for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. I said on Facebook, it's a flawed movie, but it's not really a failed movie. We went, had a good time. Many audiences seem to be. In fact, you can see that in the scores, with the Rotten Tomatoes audience scores at 85%, opposed to critics who are split pretty much down the middle. This month, disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein reappeared in the headlines, a tentative $25 million settlement with dozens of his alleged sexual misconduct victims. The deal allows that Weinstein doesn't have to admit any wrongdoing, and none of the payout comes out of his own pocket. The now bankrupt Weinstein Company's insurance company is going to pay that settlement. More than 30 actresses and former employees have accused Weinstein of offenses from sexual harassment to rape. Weinstein has paid financial settlements to sexual harassment accusers off and on for decades. There is a criminal trial scheduled for next month on still other sexual assault charges involving 2 women. It was a rough year for Boeing. The 737 MAX, the company's best-selling commercial jet, grounded worldwide since March after 2 fatal crashes killed 346 people. This month, the Boeing Starliner spacecraft failed to reach the International Space Station, had trouble in orbit. And then the CEO of Boeing, Dennis Muhlenberg, was fired this month over lost confidence of customers and industry regulators. There's a new CEO, guy named David Calhoun. He takes over next month. Boeing, the largest aerospace company in the world. On December the 23rd, the FDA approved a new drug for migraines. It's going to be sold under the name, Ubrelvy, Ubrelvy. Ubrelvy? Whatever. It specifically targets a protein that's involved in the transmission of pain. It's supposed to be a new way to treat migraines. The American Migraine Foundation says that 1 billion people on Earth suffer from migraines, affecting women 3 times more than men. You and I are in the wrong business. I'm convinced of it. Especially after a global story this month about Italian artist Maurizio Catalan and his work of art on display at the Art Basel Miami Beach exhibition. The exhibit, and I'm sure you remember this story, the exhibit, which sold to an unnamed art collector for $120,000, was a banana duct-taped to the wall. This guy, Catalan, went down and bought the banana at a supermarket in Miami, and he taped it to the wall, and he got paid $120,000. Actually, no, that's not right. He did it twice, 2 exhibits. So make that $240,000. But wait, a third banana went up for auction and brought a reported $150,000. But on Saturday, December the 7th, a prankster and performance artist grabbed the banana off the wall and ate it. The banana promptly replaced. The gallery says it was entirely the point. Yes, the banana is perishable, temporary, but you can always tape a new banana to the wall. Now, I've been trying to get my head around this story. I was interested to learn, and I'm not saying that this is the case in the banana story, okay? But I was interested to learn that exhibits are sometimes covers for money laundering schemes, Okay? The New York Times ran an expose a couple of years ago about hidden identities in the art world that use these major art houses to transfer money or loan money under the noses of law enforcement. Art transactions are worth an estimated $60 billion a year. Now, that's attractive to embezzlers, money launderers, forgers, scammers. Some are using offshore shell companies. They never reveal their identities to anyone, including the people who buy their quote-unquote art. Now, again, I don't know that this is the case with the banana, but I have to say it would make a hell of a lot more sense than somebody dropping $120,000 for a 50-cent banana. This month, Transportation Minister Sanna Marin became the new Prime Minister of Finland. 34 years old, she's the world's youngest sitting Prime Minister. She was sworn in on the 10th. Interesting quote from former President Barack Obama. Just a few days after that, at a speech in Singapore, the BBC reported that Obama said, quote, "I'm absolutely confident that for 2 years, if every nation on earth was run by women, you would see a significant improvement across the board on just about everything, living standards and outcomes." Now, there is some evidence to back this claim up, by the way. Wherever you land on the discussion, there's no doubt men have had plenty of time and plenty of chances in the halls of power. One last short break. When I come back, just a couple of quick sports headlines, a little bit of entertainment news, the celebrities we lost in 2019, and the weirdest news, or some of the weirdest news, of the last 12 months. 2019, the year in review, continues right after this. I don't do a lot of sports news. It's probably a product of my own bias. Like, I don't follow a lot of sports in my own life, so we don't really have a big sports section. I don't hear too many people complaining. Some big stories, though, in 2019. Sports Illustrated naming U.S. women's soccer player Megan Rapinoe its 2019 Sports Person of the Year. The U.S. women's team winning the World Cup in 2019. The men's World Cup won by Ukraine. They scored 3-1 against South Korea. The New England Patriots won their 6th Super Bowl championship back in February. The Washington Nationals won the World Series. It's their first in the baseball team's entire franchise history. A few entertainment headlines from the last year. Green Book controversially took Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Best Actor to Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody. Best Actress to Olivia Colman for The Favorite. Best Director, Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. At the Emmys, Game of Thrones somehow took Outstanding Drama Series this year. How's this possible? Outstanding Comedy went to Amazon's Fleabag. HBO's documentary Leaving Neverland won Best Documentary Special. And a quick look at many of the famous names we lost in 2019. Many of these household names that will ring familiar. Perhaps not the first guy, though. You'll know his brand. The creative director and fashion designer for Chanel, Karl Lagerfeld. He died on February 15th at 85. Long Island rocker Eddie Money passed away in September. Esophageal cancer. He was 70. Gloria Vanderbilt, heiress, actress, designer, author, mother to Anderson Cooper. She died on June 17th at 95. We lost Grumpy Cat this year. The frowning internet sensation died on the 14th of May after complications from a urinary tract infection. We lost comedian Tim Conway of The Carol Burnett Show. That happened May 14th. He was 85. Legendary singer-actress Doris Day, May 13th at 97. Peter Mayhew, Star Wars' Chewbacca, died at 74 on the 30th of April. We lost director John Singleton, arguably most famous for the film Boys in the Hood. He was 51. Actor Luke Perry of Beverly Hills 90210, massive stroke. He was 52, died on March the 4th. Grammy Award-winning singer James Ingram, 66 years old. He died in January. Actor Robert Forster, Known from Jackie Brown and Breaking Bad and a 50-year career, he died in October at 78. Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison passed away this year, the first black woman to ever receive the Nobel Prize for Literature and author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning book Beloved. She died in New York August the 5th. She was 88. Pioneering journalist and television commentator Cokie Roberts died of breast cancer September 17th at 75. Hollywood legend Peter Fonda, August 16th, 79 years old, the founder of the home shopping network, QVC, died. His name is Joseph Siegel. He died this month on the 22nd. You know, 300 million people watch Home Shopping Network all around the world. Carol Spinney, the legendary puppeteer behind Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. He died December 8th. He was 85. Another legend of the big and small screen, Albert Finney, passed away February. He was 82. Rutger Hauer, famous for being in everything from The Hitcher to Blade Runner to Sin City to Batman. He was 75. He died on July the 19th. Famous ghost hunter Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigator made popular by the Conjuring film. She passed away April the 19th. She was 92. Now, this is weird. Does it mean that her husband will now be haunted by the ghost of Lorraine Warren? I have questions about that. Former presidential candidate and billionaire Ross Perot. He died in July, 89. David Koch of the Koch brothers, the billionaire team, famous for backing the Republican Party, August 23rd, he was 79. Former president of France, Jacques Chirac, September 26th at 86. John Paul Stevens, former U.S. Supreme Court Justice, he died at 99 in July. House Representative and longtime civil rights activist Elijah Cummings of Maryland. He died October 17th at the age of 68. We lost Peter Tork of the Monkees in February. Peter Tork was 77 years old. Lead singer of the Cars, Rick Ocasek. He died in September at 75. We lost the lead singer of Roxette this year. Marie Fredrickson, brain tumor. She died December 9th. We lost Jan Michael Vincent this year. Remember the 1980s television show Airwolf? He was 73, died in February. A couple of big names from Star Trek finish out my list today. Dorothy D.C. Fontana. She was the first female writer for Star Trek, and she was a pioneer behind several beloved Trek episodes. She died at the age of 80 on December 2nd. And we lost Renee Auberjonois, Odo from Star Trek DS9. Lung cancer, died at 79 years old. Before we wrap up this look back at the year 2019, let's take a look at some of the stranger headlines that sort of came across our radar in the last 12 months. Just weird, odd, bizarre, strange, but entertaining stories that caught our interest. Here's one. Imagine having a sinus infection and headaches nonstop for 18 years. It happened to a 48-year-old man who finally, just here in 2019, decided to have it checked. He had doctors at Sydney's Westmead Hospital take a look. Now, apparently, this guy had kind of a checkered past. So 18 years ago, right before he did a stint in prison, his girlfriend decided she was going to help him smuggle some weed into the pokey. Okay, so she gave him some weed, stuck it in a rubber balloon, and he inserted the balloon up his right nostril. He was trying to kind of breathe it back up there, but not too far, but something went wrong. He inhaled the balloon full of weed further than he expected. He thought he'd swallowed the thing, but apparently no. For 18 years, a balloon bag of marijuana was lodged in the nasal passage of this man's head, and it calcified. The Huffington Post story actually showed the photos from the CT scan. Surgeons pulled it out. Go figure, no more sinus infections or headaches after that. Evans, Louisiana, the Associated Press reported this in early November. 52-year-old Belinda Fondren, she cooked up a little scam at her job at a medical clinic. She realized that high school students were always looking for medical excuse notes, to get out of class, and she had access to the paperwork, and so she decided to start up a little side business. One excuse note to get you out of class would set you back $20. And voila, a business was born. Finally, so many of these things came in that somebody got wise and they called one of the doctors mentioned in the notes, and the jig was up. Fondren was given a false records charge. As reported by the AP in October, upstate New York, a woman driving along and hit something in the road. She hit something. While she was driving, she pulled over, she got out, saw damage to the front grille of the car, but couldn't see anything else. So she got back in and she kept driving. But she still kept hearing noises, strange noises. Finally, after about 15 miles, she pulled over, got back out, rechecked the car's front end. And from within the bent front grille slat of the vehicle, from within the bent grille, she saw a pair of eyeballs. It was a dog gazing back at her from just below the license plate. 16-pound dog apparently struck, and when it hit the car, it wedged through the grille, through the space behind the bumper, and survived. The dog got immediate medical attention, fractured elbow and some bruising, obviously sore from the accident, but otherwise came away without any other injuries. And the owner was tracked down, and all were reunited. By the way, the dog's name is Coco, and yeah, she's doing just fine. Oh my God, the basement's flooded. Nick Lestina, Bagley, Iowa, found this out the hard way about his own house. He walked down to the basement and saw flooding, but his basement wasn't flooded with water. It was filled to 5 inches with blood and guts. The neighborhood meat locker apparently had been washing animal blood and tissue down their drains, and there was a clog or break in the pipe, and that sent all this blood and waste rushing up into Nick Lestina's basement through the floor drain. The family had to move out of the house until the bloody basement could finally be cleaned up. I can't even imagine how you'd get rid of the smell. Hey, how'd you like a hotel room for only $1 a night? But the catch is, your entire stay would be live streamed on YouTube. Room 8 at the Ashai Roiken Hotel in Japan went public with the offer just last month as a publicity stunt. Cameras would show everything in the room. Cameras at every angle except for the bathroom. And there is a YouTube channel for the curious. Just YouTube search $1 Hotel. If you could get the room for $1 a night, would you allow yourself to be broadcast for the world on YouTube? How far exactly are you willing to go for your bargain? Drivers in Michigan got a free show in September of this year. Specifically, it was a billboard on the I-75 and M59 exchange. Somebody apparently hacked the digital billboard and they uploaded porn. The Auburn Hills Police said that the porn billboard video ran for about 20 minutes. Are you a sleepwalker? Have you ever done anything weird in your sleep? Well, try this one out. Jenna Evans of San Diego, she was sleepwalking. She said she was dreaming that she was on a high-speed train, and the only way to keep her expensive wedding ring from being stolen by the bad guys was to put it in her mouth and swallow it. The thing is, she actually acted out part of this dream in real life. She poured herself a cup of water in her sleep, and she swallowed her wedding ring for real. She had to have an emergency procedure to remove it. She's got a long history of sleepwalking. She says she's actually done laundry in her sleep. How do I get that for me? Like, I'd like to do laundry while I'm sleeping, you know? You go to bed, you wake up, the laundry's done. Ta-da. That sounds amazing. As reported by the Boston Globe in May of this year, there was a guy named Nate Roman called the cops after he realized somebody had been in his house while he was at work. Somebody had broken in. He came home and he could tell somebody had been inside the place, but the weird thing was nothing was taken. On top of that, whoever was there made the beds, vacuumed the carpets, and scrubbed all the toilets. In fact, they left the house pretty much spotless. This person actually crafted origami roses on the toilet paper rolls before he or she left. Now, Nate said he did leave the back door unlocked by accident, it is possible maybe a house cleaning service just got the wrong address. Oh, if that would happen to you and me, right? Reuters news service reporting this story from Chennai, India. A 7-year-old boy had complaints about swelling in his jaw, been going on for a few years. Doctors took a look and found the problem. There was a benign tumor in the jaw. Inside the tumor were some extra teeth. More than some extra teeth. There were 526 extra teeth, believed to be a global medical record. Why is it that some of the most entertaining weird news comes out of Florida? So much so that the Florida Man hashtag is a thing. Like Florida Man this, Florida Man that. In 2019, saw plenty of Florida Man stories for us to enjoy, including a guy who was in a Wendy's drive-thru in Loxahatchee. He tossed a 3-foot alligator through the Wendy's drive-thru window. There's a Newport Richie guy who was released from jail for auto theft and on his way home from jail broke into a car, got arrested, again on the same charge. There was a naked dancing guy in Cape Coral, Florida, wielding a knife while chanting gibberish after ingesting psychedelic mushrooms. A man in North Palm who stole $33,000 worth of collectible coins, and he exchanged them in a Coinstar machine for $29. Like he didn't realize they were collectibles. He just put them in a Coinstar machine for $29. And a woman in Collier County, Florida. She held up a mail truck with a toy gun and then fled the scene on a tricycle. Here's a Florida story from 2019. A driver in Port St. Lucie got out of his car. He left the car running with a dog inside. He had a black Labrador named Max. Max was bouncing around inside the car and he knocked the gear shift into reverse. He drove the car backward in circles for about an hour as people desperately tried to get in. Casualties included a mailbox, some garbage cans, some bricks of a nearby home. The police finally stopped the car. The dog was rescued. Max was dizzy, but 100% okay. And because the editor of this broadcast is a dog lover, and you can never have enough dog stories on the show, November saw the celebrity of Narwhal the puppy. Did you see the photographs of little Narwhal? Rescued by an organization called Max Mission in Missouri. This puppy, whose full name is Narwhal the Little Magical Furry Unicorn, well, he has an extra tail, and it's growing out of his forehead. This puppy was found freezing on the streets at the age of 10 weeks. Today, he has a brand new life. In fact, he is a global celebrity, the Fuzzy Unicorn, with, of course, lots of forever home prospects for his future. Seriously, go look at the photographs. I mean, it is what it is. Hug him and squeeze him and put your sweet little Bobby. It's adorable. Just too cute. Okay. I guess that's all the damage we can do. Let's get ready for 2020. Let's put the decade behind us. Lots of great stuff on the horizon, my friends. A happy new year to you and to yours. Thank you so much for making this last 12 months so very special for me, and I will see you on the other side of January 1st. Have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you later.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter for a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming free thought events and conventions. Log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.